Hello, everybody. Welcome to Profoto Live with Anna Fowler and Kara Mercer. I'm your guy, Chris Fain. We're hanging out today. We're going to have some fun. We're going to look at some images. We're going to chat with those two lovely ladies who I'm going to bring up here momentarily. But if you have any questions, ask them in the chat below on profoto.com on our Anna Fowler and Kara Mercer page, and we will answer them here. If we glaze past them, we have people paying attention to the chat too, to make sure they shoot over that information to us. So if we miss something, if we glaze past it, which I'm generally known for doing, just ask it again. We're more than happy to answer all your questions. So with that being said, I'm going to bring up Kara and Anna. Welcome
Thank
to
you. Hello.
our live broadcast with Kara and Anna. So this is super fun. How are you ladies doing today?
Doing so good. How are you?
Good. Really, really good. Besides everyone having microphone issues right off the jump, I think we're doing swimmingly.
And I almost didn't get here, so.
Yeah, but you know what? You're here and you look fantastic. You have this beautiful dappled light on your face. It's magical.
And a sweaty glow.
I love it. I love it. Everyone, it means you're working and everyone knows it.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. So we're going to be talking about you ladies, about what it is that makes you tick, what got you into photography, and then we're going to break down some cool images that you've taken and talk about the inspo behind it. People are going to get to ask questions, and this should be a lot of fun.
Sounds great. We're excited.
So cool. So let's start with just right off the jump. Let's go, Kara. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, and then we'll jump to Anna right after that.
Okay, sounds great. My name is Kara Mercer. I am living based in Seattle, Washington. I travel internationally. Well, I did pre-COVID, not anymore. But shooting commercial photography. But I started photography about 14 years ago in weddings in Texas. So I was born and raised in Texas, picked up my business after a full-fledged wedding career and shooting portraiture and families, and moved to the West Coast. So for the last 8 to 9 years, I've been doing commercial photography for photo and video, and shooting for various types of fashion, travel, some tourism and lifestyle brands in the commercial sector. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm super excited to talk about the lighting I use, because Profoto's definitely been a game changer for me in just ease of use and just creating beautiful photos for those clients.
That's awesome. How about you, Anna?
So I have arrived here straight from a shoot, so I'm literally almost on the job. I have been a photographer for 10 years. Before that, I actually worked as a TV presenter. So I had a complete shift in gears, and I went from in front to behind. I shoot a mixture of stuff. It started off with portraits, shooting girls, like models for their portfolios, and dancers and people in the industry. And then it moved on to some weddings, and it's moved on to commercial work. So I do a little bit of everything, but mainly what I like to shoot is women. Sometimes I'm given a boy and I'll shoot them, but they're just not as exciting.
I love that.
Understandably. I don't think I'm
Sorry,
a dude.
No offense.
I'm a dude. I'm not that exciting. I'm not that exciting.
I feel like photographing you and your amazing hair. That would be pretty exciting.
Pretty good hair. I like the volume.
Great hair.
It took. I need to pull up some of my old I used to play in punk rock bands forever. That was my thing. And for a long time, around 18, I used to straighten my hair because I didn't know what to do with it. Just literally, my wife, who I've been with my wife forever, she taught me how to flat iron my hair, and that was probably the worst thing that I've ever done. But I also embraced it at one point, and I went full afro with blonde highlights. I'll find the photos at some point. I'll share. I'll share them.
Yes, please. We definitely need a whole album of all of that.
One of our old drummer posted up something the other day, and I was like, where did you get those photos? I need that photo. He goes, oh, go to the Wayback Machine. He's like, you can go to our old website. You can at least steal that photo. And so it was awesome. I got it. I showed my wife the other day. She goes, that's amazing. But then finally my buddy John David was like, dude, you just got to embrace the curly hair. So and here we are.
It's very on trend.
It was the first thing I noticed whenever we got on. I was like, oh, hi, look at your hair.
Yeah, it's just I'm trying to get it higher and higher and higher. Eventually, you won't be able to see anything. So,
wow, like vanilla ice. No.
Oh, hey, I could, and then I just hit the eyebrow, like a couple little lines in the eyebrow.
Yeah.
What am I doing with my life? What am I doing with my life? This is.
Get on that.
I'm gonna turn my camera off right now while you're talking. I'm gonna go do this.
Come back with it.
My wife would actually kill me. So, cool. So I'm gonna bring up. We have some photos, everyone, that Kara and Anna have shared, and we're gonna kind of get a chance to talk through them. Their like mindset, inspiration behind the photos. The gear they use, why they chose that gear. And so I'm going to bring those images up right now so we can see that. And I think this will be really, really fun. The first thing that we have coming up, hold on, let me pull this up first. And then there we go. It reorganizes over to the side. That's perfect. So the first image that we have is some shots from Anna. And essentially, yes. one of the things, a couple of things we want to just talk about is kind of like, what were the client requirements for the gig? Like, what were they looking for? What were the goals of the final images? And how did you use your flash to get those images?
This was a real wedding, right? This wasn't actually.
This doesn't look like a real wedding. This looks like a commercial gig.
It looks like a styled editorial.
I mean, okay, first of all, this model, Chloe Lloyd, I've shot her for 10 years. Like, fresh model. I'd started off, we met each other, and she was kind of my muse, and I've worked with her for 10 years. So when she said, will you shoot my wedding? I was like, well, obviously, yes. So I can't take all the credit for those images looking the way they do because of me. Like, she's amazing. She can get the shot in 2 seconds. So first of all, she looks amazing. The florist did an amazing job. It was a really good venue in the Cotswolds in England, which is a lovely part of the countryside here, called Aynhoe, which is an amazing venue. So everything was kind of there for me. But yes, because it was a real wedding day, we had 10 minutes, I think, to get any types of shots of her and her groom. But I've worked with her so long, she's just trusts me and just, you do whatever you do. And she just poses for me. So these were shot with a lot of ambient light, but it's one of those rooms. It's the ceremony room. So literally got all the chairs out, moved loads of stuff, and then they had to turn it around, which is why it was actually we had to be quick to get those shots. It's one of those rooms that looks really bright to the naked eye, and then you start shooting and you're like, what? I need to put my ISO up loads. And of course, then you start losing quality. So even though there was ambient light, I put the A1 on because that's the only light I actually take with me when I'm shooting weddings. And I believe I literally bounced it off the ceiling for some and behind me for some. The best thing is you can just twiddle it. So it probably was at several angles that I was shooting at.
That's cool.
But it's a mixture of ambient and the flash.
Yeah, no, because it's just like looking at it, it's so perfectly balanced. It's amazing too that this was actually a wedding, because just knowing how much time you generally have at a wedding, like right. for it to look as polished as this is incredible. And I think that's probably why, just off the top of your head, you go, oh, and obviously you do really, really killer commercial stuff. But like off the top of the head, you look at this, you're like, man, this is such a polished shot. Like, of course this was totally staged, but to know that this was an actual wedding is massively impressive.
Totally.
Yeah, I do love those photos, but I always just feel like lots of people do say, wow, that they're really nice photos, and I do feel like I'm cheating because I have like an amazing person in front of the camera, and the florist that I work with a lot here in London, she's just so amazing. And since she did that sort of arch of flowers, like so many people with other weddings I've done have copied it since. So it was quite a lovely set of images for other people to either copy the dress, copy the flowers, copy the hair.
Absolutely.
And then want exactly the same look, but it's hard when it's not someone that looks like that.
Exactly. I mean, but I think the inspo for anybody is always fun to see something amazing like that. And you're like, oh, I love the flower arch. I love like a setup like that. I mean, obviously when you have a professional they know how to, like, just like you said, she knows how to move. So like in the compact time that you had to get an image like that, or those three, that set of images, like they're professional, they know how to move like that. But I just think I think it's cool to see something that polished looking, knowing that you were only able to do it within moments.
Yeah, it was super, super quick. And I just wanted it to look like I was shooting quite a few covers at the time for a wedding magazine, and I just wanted it to look the same as I would shoot for a magazine within that time, which is why you kind of need that added element of flash, because you need like the clarity and the crispness to the skin and the hair, and it just helps with getting the contrast and everything that sometimes when you've got that average natural light, you just can't achieve on its own.
I tell people that all the time when we're talking about like balancing flash and ambient light like this, that like natural light is really pretty, but there's sometimes when you just add just that little bit of flash just to give it a pop that still looks like if you were to look at this, you go, oh, that's natural light 100%. But there's something about it that is just different, and that flash makes that it takes that little bit of the image and just takes it way over the top, and you would never know why, but it's just that. And I think that's amazing.
But that's how I like to use flash at weddings, is I mean, sometimes I do just use that flash on my camera and point it straight at the bride and groom, especially at night. I love that look when it's dark behind them and they come out really glossy and it looks amazing in black and white. But I do love natural light, but I want it to look as natural as possible. But it needs to look polished. And I think that's where the flash makes the natural light look polished.
100%. So we're going to move to this next set, which is Kara, which I think is phenomenal. I love really, really hard, punchy light. It's one of my absolute favorite things in the entire world, and these are fantastic. So Kara, please, let's talk about these images, this set of images.
Yeah, so I too love the mixture of ambient light, stark light with just pops of light that the A1 can provide. And I think that the beauty of that is you have these beautiful shadows, and like you can see these ambient like just patterns on the walls that are created from shadows. But what happens in a scenario like this is you get these weird nose shadows that like create like a second nose for someone sometimes. And then you get like, you just need to kind of soften it on the face so it's less obtrusive and just more brings back that beauty to it. So I think that's what I was really looking to do with this set of photos, is not only use that ambient light that was coming through, but focusing it with a grid to really light up her face and to get rid of a lot of those weird shadows that fall when you're in harsh light. So, and most people would look at that and be like, why would you like put a flash in that? But it's very subtle. And I think I tend to move my A1s or most of my lights closer or further away just to kind of give it a certain look and a vibe. But I think it's a beautiful thing to mix variations in light to create something that's just really authentic to you. And that's one thing that I've loved about all my Profoto gear, is I've been able to mix it in many different scenarios, whether it's the A1 or the B10, B10 Plus, to really create these images that it takes it to the next level, like you were saying.
I think that's kind of dynamite too, to when you say like you're using your light very intentionally, because I think one of the things that people, and it's one of those things that's just going to happen when you're new to flash in general, is
Absolutely.
People kind of just, they hear, oh, put the flash on a stand 45 degrees from your subject. Like,
Yeah.
and it just becomes really, really mundane and stuff like that. So I think once you start thinking of like why you want to use flash to add something extra to your image, really starts to transform what you're shooting.
Absolutely. And I think that's the thing, is that everybody kind of wants like this rule book in the beginning when you're using flash, and it's just not like that. You just have to watch the way light falls on a wall, the way it falls on your subject's face, and then ask yourself, okay, if this is ambient light here to start with, then how do we want to create this vibe? Same thing in studio. Like if you're having multiple light setups, you want to ask yourself what you want your backlight to do, what you want your rim light or side light, and how you want to kind of create that look if there aren't these natural shadows at play. But for this certain scenario, this was for a designer. So she designs wedding veils and hair pieces and jewelry. And we just wanted it to be very editorial, very polished. And I just kept finding the under eyes were just too dark and not the way I wanted them to look. And we also wanted just more of a dramatic look than even Starklight can offer. So that's why I decided to use the grid on there to really focus the light. And then I moved it further back and closer depending on where I wanted that light to fall. So sometimes you just have to kind of test that when you're on set and decide where, you know, you want that to be focused and how you want to focus the light.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think just like you said, like staying super intentional, not being afraid to like for your light not to be perfect right in the beginning and just to play with it. I think, you know, a lot of people forget that film is expensive, or it used to be expensive, but like photos today are cheap. They don't cost anything. Like you buy a card and you just delete it over and over again. So don't be afraid to try something different. Like cool rules are cool to give you a place to jump off from, but then take those rules and break those rules. And then that's where you're going to start to find your voice. And I think like looking at your images and you start showing your voice and showing how your intentionality makes your images is a huge thing. And because I think people really like to get caught up in the idea of like, oh, I'm trying to be an individual. I don't want to be exactly like anybody else. And you're not. Yeah. You never can be, because you are you. And so yeah. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it's been really fun. It's been like such a cool journey to decide how I want to use all of my lights. And I mean, I had a lot of experience with wedding photography, shooting off camera flash, and obviously back then I was like shooting Canon and a lot of like strobes that they had, and it was like not the greatest setup. So it's just been a game changer for me for commercial work and pretty much any type of work, just to be able to have compact A1s that I can bring with me that just really have a punch to them. And I'm not having to like do these crazy setups in a public space. So it's been really fun to just make it my own.
Absolutely. That's awesome. So let's go to the next slide. Boom. Oh. We've got Kara again with some killer still life stuff. So let's talk still life, because I know that this isn't technically a flat lay, but yeah. I love the vibe of this. And so let's hear about it. Like what was the intention behind it?
Yeah, so this is for an alcohol brand that I shot for in December of last year, and they sent me product, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to shoot with your cans though. I was like, those will be taken out of the frame, and I'll restyle everything. And so I came up with this like cocktail recipe for them and styled everything. And I was like, okay, I just want some really interesting light setups. So I actually had a backdrop that I rolled down onto the table, and I had some fabric that I kind of draped over the backdrop. And then I had my B10 off to like at an angle, looking like right at the scene. And I popped it with light for a few. And then I decided to use continuous too for some of these. The continuous mode is just so impressive and just looks beautiful for video, for photo, whatever you're trying to create. So that was kind of like my inspiration, was to create this beautifully lit scene. Like this was all shot at night. Like there's no ambient light, nothing. So the B10 really just provides this beautiful look and softness, especially with the backdrop color that I chose. And especially during the pandemic, it's been an interesting season of lots of companies are like, we're just going to send you this stuff and we want you to style it and shoot it. And I'm like, okay, sounds good. So this is like where my dining room setup of like all these backdrop papers have started kind of coming in. But I just love the way that the light ended up, because these shadows look like they're coming from sunlight. And that was the whole point.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think one of the things that is kind of obvious as a wedding shooter moving into commercial is photographing human beings, because that's, a wedding is all about capturing moments of human. But like, how does shooting weddings prepare you for something like this?
I think weddings are hard and they're a beast of their own, to be really honest. Like, I think you have to be a very good communicator on a wedding day. You have to be organized, especially if there's not a planner. But even then, like, you kind of become like the chief operator for the whole day, and you're like herding people along. I would always like tell people, the faster you get in here with these family photos, the faster you have alcohol.
You can drink.
Yes, that would be
one of those right there.
Yeah, more alcoholic beverages. So for me, like, lighting really opened my eyes with off-camera flash and learning how to utilize that for weddings, especially really quickly. You have to be very, very quick on your feet, especially like receptions, not to miss those shots. So I think weddings put you in this place of really starting to harness the way that light works, like certain directional light that you like or don't like. And even on-camera flash, manually dialing in all of your settings. So then when you go to a scenario like this, it's actually really laid back, because you're like, okay, I pretty much know how I want my settings to look. And you've already kind of tinkered with the idea of soft light versus harsh light, and where you want to set up your light in accordance to the scene that's happening. So I kind of just treat like the main cup as like the focal point, like the bride and groom, if you will. So that's like my bride and groom in the middle. And then I kind of create like S-curves with the composition, and then create shadows where there's like no interest. Like, this was really boring and flat. Like, if I shot it at a different angle and there weren't like some cool shadows to create just some depth and something that wasn't just so like, bam, here's a flash, like right at the scene. So I did that purposefully of just like, so I flashed it first, and I was like basically changing the settings manually, like with the B10. And I was like, okay, I don't love how poppy this is. I want it to be a little bit more soft, like summer feeling, like as if the light was just like soft and falling on the scene. So that's basically what I did. I ended up going to continuous and moving it closer and further back just to kind of see how I felt about that light. And that's where I ultimately landed.
That's awesome. That's very cool.
Great.
Sweet. Let's go to the next.
Yeah.
Boom. We're back to Anna.
More girls.
We're back to Anna.
Back to all the girls.
I love her dress.
It's pretty dope.
I know. That's what we were shooting for the brand. And this is another girl that I've worked with a lot, and she's what we call an influencer now. So she will take me on a day for 2 hours, and she will come with a massive bag full of a million outfits. And again, it's like she will give you probably 4 minutes to get the shot, and then she needs to change on the street normally into her next outfit. It's chaotic, it's hectic, there's no one with us. You'll go either in a car, you drive around London, you see something, you hop out, you shoot it, you get back in. This was randomly in a shopping center, I think. We just saw this pink van, and so we're just like, right, let's get a shot in front of that. Excuse me, can we open the door and sit in there, please? So it was really quick, and see, everything I do tends to be just hectic most of the time, which is why I've got the A1 with me again. And I'm using it in the same way that I did for the weddings. I want it to look, like we're just out in natural light, and it's quite candid. And I'm bouncing that flash to just make sure that the contrast is good and she's sharp. And she moves around a lot. So it helps with focus, just having that extra pop of flash, because for influencers, I think they don't like, that one to the right is quite posed, but I think they quite like to be captured sort of moving, either walking or moving or hair moving. They don't like it to look very posed to camera. So you've got to get them sharp as they're moving, and she's quite hectic, so I need that A1 with her.
It's brilliant. And once again, you do a phenomenal job of blending the two, because most people would look at this and go, oh yeah, clearly it's just natural light. I mean, I think like us three, for example, who use light all the time, we know how to look for certain things and can tell that kind of stuff. But I think the subtlety in it is amazing. And then obviously the contrast between the model and the pink van is just really, really cool.
Yeah.
So
Someone asked in the chat if if it was on camera, flash, or off.
It's on. Do you know what? I'm probably just purely for ease normally use the A1 on the camera. I do have two of them, so I need to set up keep one on camera and set up the other one because I do have the trigger as well. And I just haven't got around to doing it because weddings haven't happened last year. So I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to bring this element into my photography. And then it's not been able to happen for weddings. And also these type of shoots have been a lot quieter this year as well. And then I've been in the studio. So I've obviously been using bigger Profotos and more light. So as soon as I get back to doing more of these, I'm not going to just use the one. I'm going to see how I can also ping the other one in there. I think my own taste in using the flash is always to keep it so, as you said, you can't really see that it's too flashy, because I don't like the subject to kind of stand away too much from the background. I want it all to just look kind of the same. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's why I keep it really soft.
One of my lighting mentors at one point in time, like I took this one photo and I showed it to him. I thought it was kind of cool. And he goes, you either have to take everything out, or you have to, like, it wound up being a shot where I was trying to add like a whole bunch of like messy, like the subject was like this wild, wacky guy. And so I was like, oh, I'll add a couple of like little wacky elements. And my mentor was like, you either need to go all wacky or just take everything out and just have the guy. And I think the beauty in like, in keeping it blended this well is because she's clearly the focus of the shot, but all the elements, like, they make sense. They're not like they're either there or they're not there. And I think that's huge because a lot of the times, you know, in photography, it's just as much about what you don't photograph as what you do photograph. Yeah. And so the blending and having everything in there match evenly is really phenomenal.
But you also have to kind of make them look like, not like they're shot on an iPhone, but again, there's an element to making it look quite natural, because influencers, again, quite often, like the shoot that I was on today, I was taking professional images for the website and the banners, but the influencer I was shooting won't use any of those. She had the iPhone taking pictures of her for anything she was putting on her page, because it's that element, that candid element that is so popular on social media now. So it's really difficult coming from a background of photography where it does have to look so polished and professional and look like it's lit and everything else, to now changing it to make it look like it's just, I just took it and it was just so easy. I took it on my iPhone. You're not taking it on your iPhone.
Yeah, exactly. So someone asked, they said, both of your images are so lovely. Do you have any advice for photographers just getting started with flash? I'm a natural light photographer, but these are the types of images I'm striving to achieve.
Oh my God. Well, my advice would be to just keep it so simple. Decide on what you want. Because I shoot women, I predominantly just need flattering light. So I don't need shadows. I don't need too much overhead light. I just need soft, pretty light, exactly what you would get if you had that perfect time of day with beautiful light. So I've just used flash to try and create what I use with natural light, and you can do that with one or two lights. So I would say keep it simple, and then when you get confident, then you can start adding more lights.
Absolutely. I think also just looking at a scene, like if you're outside shooting and just asking yourself what makes sense here and what's missing. Like if you're looking at the subject's face and you're like, okay, this is a little too shadowy or a little too dark under their eyes. Ask yourself when to use the flash. I feel like sometimes in the beginning, people are like, I'm going to throw flash in everything and anything. And it's just like becomes like the ketchup they put on all the things that don't make sense. And you're like, wait, I don't understand why this was like good. But then there's scenarios where like there's always a way to make lighting better. So figuring out like what you dislike about like what your setup is And usually it's something to do with the light and something minor that's like not working. And then playing with lighting patterns, I would just recommend you start learning at home, like how to mimic natural light patterns. If you are a natural light shooter and you're trying to do more flash work or strobes, I think it's really awesome to work on that at home. And it just starts to like, you can find ways to emulate that light with strobes and like things like A1s super easily.
Yeah. I think one thing too that is really cool with just how cameras have come along is the live preview.
Yeah.
So I think, I use my Fuji all the time in a live preview mode. And so what you can do is just look at the image in live preview and then put a flash where you think it needs to be. Just like you were saying, Kara, like look at where the light and the shadow are falling. And if you feel like something needs to be emphasized, put a light there. And then don't be afraid to turn the power of the light up or down. I think sometimes people think that it's just supposed to stay where it is. And it's like, maybe it doesn't need that much light. Like just turn the dial down. You'll be fine.
Totally. So. Yeah, I feel like sometimes like you force yourself to stick with this lighting scenario that you've set up in the beginning. And you're like, what am I doing? Why am I forcing this? I need to just back it up, turn 100%. The power down or up and figure out like what's just not working. Like, don't be afraid to move things around until you kind of get a vibe that you're looking for.
Absolutely. Someone wanted to know, Anna, because you said in this shot you were actually bouncing the flash. Were you just like, did you just point it up and bounce it with the bounce card, or were you like bouncing it off of something like a wall since you were outside?
We had a wall. There was a white wall as well, just behind. It was about a meter behind me, so that's why I used the flash to bounce, because I was like, perfect. I have a reflector.
That's 3 feet for all you American degenerates who don't know what the
Okay.
Ever since I've been doing more stuff with Global and realizing that like everybody except us uses metric system, like I'm like, how do I remember how to translate this into something for us degenerate? Yeah. So that's 3 feet for you Americans, you dirty Americans. So I'm gonna get fired after this. So cool. So I know I see some more questions coming in. Let me see what we have going on here. So that was so for the person who asked, 1 meter or 3 feet behind Anna, white wall. She bounced it. There you go.
But if you don't, I take a big reflector that's silver one side and white the other.
That's
a good
move.
Have your makeup artist up behind you and then turn it that way and just bounce it backwards.
That's a good move.
I do that.
That's a really good move. It says, hi, I'm new to flash photography. They have a B1X and a 2-foot beauty dish. Looking for light shaping accessories for product photos. Any recommendations? What do you ladies say?
I would go XL umbrella for that because, I mean, honestly, I love a beauty dish. I love, love, love dramatic light and beauty dishes. But I think a beauty dish is going to give you more harsh shadows and just more of a poppy feel, which I think is great for just a beautiful beauty shot or a headshot. But I think using an XL umbrella, it's going to give you that really soft fall off where is good for products because you kind of need to see what you're buying. Or, most companies kind of need to see all those details really easily with not too much shadowing in the background.
And I don't do any products, so I cannot give you an answer on that one. I wouldn't know. But I agree with you.
And that's called honesty, people.
Yes.
I think the cool thing, too, about going the umbrella route is that if you do want something a little harder and punchier, you could just take the umbrella off and shoot the light straight at it. Kind of like what you do with the B10 and the continuous light. So that kind of gives you the best of both worlds. Like you can flip around, go super soft, or you can go super hard light with just that. And then that's one modifier, 2 different looks.
Absolutely. It's like sometimes you could use 2 lights with 2 umbrellas if you need like a very bright look where it's like even and consistent, or kind gosh, there's so many light setups you could use for product work,
You can get
depending
crazy.
on if it's clothes or, you know, because if you look at Free People, the way they shoot their product stuff is completely different from like a Home Goods at like, if you go to like, I don't know, Minted or something, they're going to shoot everything completely different. So there's definitely variations in lighting setup based off of the type of good that you're trying to photograph.
Yeah, and I think it also too, like when you're shooting products, granted, if you're shooting products for you, like shoot the vibe that you want and the way that you want to do it. But obviously, if you're shooting products for a company, you're going to have someone give you a little bit of direction on that. So
yeah, absolutely. And then I saw someone asked about, are we working in TTL or manual? I shoot everything in manual. So it's really like easy. I think once you start shooting flash, you kind of know where to set your settings and what you want to start with. So yeah, I'll let Anna jump in.
Same. I do as well. I think like initially you're like, oh, but then actually it's so much easier having full control over, you know, the amount of light and where you want it. So I think it's a no-brainer really if you can learn to shoot manual, definitely.
Absolutely. And the nice thing about the Profoto setup is like, so like say you're shooting with the A1 on top of your camera, you just reach up and you go, and you just change what you want.
Oh, it's the easiest thing ever.
Or you reach up to the remote and you go boop, boop, boop. I hope you like my sound effects. They actually record me. They record my stupid voice and make the sound effects for all this stuff. It's actually me. I get royalties for every sale of a flash.
I can see that, yeah.
I love the sound effects. They're making my whole day.
It's I think my kids hate them. My kids hate my sound effects. Although my daughter's falling in love with my daughter's fallen in love with my dad jokes. I forgot what I said the other day, but I cracked off some like random little joke, and my daughter went, ha, and my wife just rolled her eyes. I was like, it doesn't matter anymore. My kids love them. So now you're really in trouble. So
I love it.
Yeah. So cool. Let's slide to the next shot. What do we got? Oh, looks like we're still in Anna world. Let's do it, Anna.
Go. There's Amy again. And where were we that time? I think I would loosely use the words broken into a castle thing that used to be where I lived. Really weird white Arabic castle in a very English village. But I was like, this is white, brilliant, bright, let's go there. And then found those lovely little thistles. And that was actually, sorry, my memory is quite bad, but actually that light behind was the flash behind, I believe, because I had my makeup artist with me on that. So yeah, I did use it off camera. That one there, that one to the left, but the one to the right isn't. The one to the right's another little cheeky bounce, and that is a bounce off a reflector because we did have my makeup artist on that shoot, so that's more handy when it comes to obviously using flash. And
you can definitely see the snap of in the catch light, the snap. It's really cool.
Yeah. So again, it's just a mix of ambient, and it's my usual trick, you know. I'm like a one-trick pony when it comes to this.
Trick pony pays the bills. You can't be mad about that at all. And it's all the beautiful thing about it too is though if you think about having to carry a light stand with you, which is awesome. Like how much of a pain in the rear is it to have to shove a light stand? So you keep the flash on your camera. You have the person who's standing there with you anyway hold this thing that weighs nothing.
They are the light stand, and they know that, and that's
fine. They are the light stand, and for you don't have to do anything.
I don't have time to set up that stand, and also if you are shooting somewhere where potentially someone could come along and go, excuse me, you can't do that there, it's much quicker to just be able to run without a stand. So
absolutely, and,
you know,
it's a way easier asking for forgiveness situation. Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't know I couldn't do this.
No, but we were shooting, so that was another, because I think she was promoting that perfume from what I can remember, not the clothes, it was the perfume. So we did, again, the reason why I did use the flash as well is there was a lot in detail, but I also I wanted the background to obviously be a bit blurred, so the flash helps a lot with that as well, just getting everything nice and sharp.
Very, very cool. Do we have, let's see, I think we have another question. Do you prefer off camera versus on camera, or this is Anna for lifestyle influencer shoots. Do you prefer off camera versus on camera, or does it depend on the shoot?
Personally, I do prefer on camera and bouncing the light. That's just I just find it a lot easier and quicker, and it's just based on the fact that we are doing so much. It's easier to stay consistent with the shots and get a quick turnaround, because as you said, once you start mixing another light into it, it's just another thing to think about, and quite often I don't have time. But I do want, like, I like the fact that that has pinged a bit of light from the back. You can see it hitting her jacket, because I love backlit stuff anyway. So I think it's really flattering having backlight. And if you can't create that with the natural light, then you 100% just get a flash just slightly behind, off to the side, because it's amazing for just making it look more interesting. Totally. But yeah, I do prefer it on camera.
Very, very cool. These are great shots. Let's see. Here we go. Kira, we B10 set up with an XL umbrella. Want to talk us through this set?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a set I shot for a lifestyle magazine. Bellevue Lifestyle Magazine is based here in Washington, and essentially we were shooting a like a write-up based off of sustainability and clothing, and just like local vendors. So we actually were like shooting outside, and this is like in a parking lot, no joke. So we found
my favorite place.
I was like, oh my God, this spot is perfect. I love the raw texture of like the cement. And the original part we were gonna shoot, the makeup artist was like, oh, this will be great. Like, and then I got to the location, and I was like, there's crack cement everywhere. There's no way we can roll out this backdrop without everybody like going right through it with their shoes. So we literally drove around for a second. I was like, all right, we're just going to make this work. This is like real life in action. And we put up this backdrop in this parking lot. And what the cool thing about it is we had like such a mix of like cool lighting coming in, but then there was like really shadowy stuff happening on their faces. And then I wanted some really pretty beauty shots within this segment. And so that's where I threw the XL umbrella in some of these. I changed out a few modifiers to kind of get to where the look I wanted to, but I wanted the backdrop to be less intensely contrasted. So I did a mix of ambient light here, move the light closer and further away with the B10 with the umbrella on, and I was able to keep some of those shadows and the cool highlights that were in the backdrop by moving the light closer and further away, but being able to create these beautiful like headshots, like beauty shots, like the one on the far right that you're looking at, by just using the strobe like in the parking lot. And I think that's what's really cool, is you can change so many different directions of the lighting and make it look completely different, but the set still looks really cohesive.
Absolutely. I think what's cool too is that you have the ability to, with the Profoto world stuff, you have the ability to turn your light down in such a way that you can take advantage of all that dappled light, that really, really cool, sun clearly trees is what it looks like to me.
Yeah.
And then blend it with your flash.
Absolutely. So that is something I was doing with this set of images, is blending the B10 light with that dappled light, because I didn't want to kill that beautiful highlight dappled light that was coming through. But the backdrop was still really contrasty. And I think when you have someone that has darker hair, sometimes they can kind of blend in with that contrast. And that's what I was looking to like get rid of. So she was like this model that's like has the darkest hair. Hers was just like kind of blending in with some of the background, and it was too shadowy. So I picked it up by using the light in this series of images.
That's awesome. Someone wants to know for this shoot, Kara, how did you manage the umbrella not, like sailing away in any?
That is a very real thing. I will say, thank God, Seattle is like not super windy. So if I read that correctly, the person who asked is in Oklahoma, maybe, or it says okay, and I assumed it was Oklahoma. But maybe. Absolutely, that is a real problem. I mean, I started in Texas, and anything like that would just like fly off, in the middle of a shoot. But I had a whole team with me. I had a makeup artist, I had an assistant, hairstylist, And so together we were able to kind of keep it in place and make sure it didn't, just pick up and fly away.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you work with somebody, like someone extra, you can always have them kind of anchor the stand down.
Yes.
If not, sandbags all day long. Good as they are. Yeah, as much as they're a pain in the rear, it's much better than the ground. So
yes, absolutely. I have like 2 sets of sandbags that I'll bring with me. I think that day I just didn't have them in the right car. So thankfully they helped me with keeping it stable.
Absolutely. It's huge. So afraid to schlep around some sandbags just in case.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pop them in your handbag.
Yeah, there you go. I actually have I keep a with me that in my bag that I can actually just strap my camera bag to let it hold that down if I don't.
Oh, good
feel
idea.
Like
there you go.
Yeah,
that is a good idea.
So usually there that make it, it's not as heavy as a sandbag, but it gets the job done most of the time.
Yeah, as long as it keeps your light in a good place that's safe. It's a win.
Absolutely. That's the one. All right, Anna, let's talk about this bad boy. We talked a little bit about this the other day when we were testing this, but I think this is super cool, and I can't wait for everybody else to hear what you did with it.
Thanks. Right. So this is partly my assistant as well, Ben, who I work with all the time. And I'm not taking all the credit for this lighting, but we knew what we needed was super soft flash, because this basically, she is in a box that was built specifically for this. And it was turned out to be in a really, really tiny place, and we'd ordered a massive scrim. So that was interesting, making that fit. And that box was painted in navy blue and light blue overnight. So between the video team and us, we had to kind of like go in every day, and it was fresh paint. And obviously with a box, so the brief was no shadows, which is what I normally do when I work with this brand. It's kind of soft lighting and no shadows. But originally I was like, oh my, but we can't get her very far away from the background, because it wasn't a big box, it was quite small. So you then have the problem of, we can't pull her away enough to lose the shadow. So we can't even get lights close to her either, because I've got to be in the way of this box. The video team had their own lighting set up. They cut a hole in the top of the box, and they had like a light fixed to the top to like bring light down. But I was like, well, I can't really do that with a flash, because it's going to look like elevator lighting, and it's not going to be that flattering for girls. So I was like, it's got to be soft, but she's going to move and jump and do sporty things. So we also need to get her in focus. So it was kind of a bit overwhelming at first, but we basically, like it said, had 4 of the D2s and this massive scrim that when it arrived, I was like, Ben, what have you done? It touched the ceiling, because it was tiny, the place that this box was in. I thought we were going to be in a big studio, and we weren't. Like every shoot, you turn up and you're like, what? How are we going to make this happen? So we had a huge scrim, and then we had a super bounce. So it was like a triangle. I think it's called a book light or book lighting. Mm-hmm. So it was a triangle, and in between the triangle, we had 2 D2s flashing onto the super bounce, then so obviously flashing back and then through the scrim. So that is super soft. And then we had the big octa to the side as well. And I was just in front of everything. I mean, literally about that far away. 1 meter, 3 feet from the box for you Americans out there.
There you go. breaking it down for us.
Literally. And then we thought, because the video guys have put a light up the top, so we'll just bounce an extra light off the ceiling into the hole. Just for added benefit. And I think it worked. We didn't have shadows. That was the main brief. And it was soft lighting, and everyone was in focus when they were jumping. So it was the first time I've used that lighting setup, but it was super fun to set up, and I'm just glad it fit in the space that we were in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there she is in the other box. Cool. And it looks bigger than what it was, because I was shooting literally lying on the ground with a 24-70 to try and get like some kind of low angles and make the box look bigger, because it was quite small. But yeah, it was great because it was just, we didn't have to move it once we set it up. It was 2 days of just the same continuous light. So in fact, even though it's daunting at first when you have all of these lights, once it's all ready to go, it's actually the best thing because it's just nothing changes, which is what you want when you've got to shoot so many outfits.
100%. I love the geometry of it too. I love how just shadow and the light fall on it, how like some of the box just like disappears and then some of it's just got all these gradient. Cool.
Thank you.
I told you that the other day. I thought it was one of the most awesome things in the world. Like, so neat.
Thank you. Well, that was my producer's idea, the box. So Emma gets credit for that as well. It's always a team, isn't it? When you do commercial jobs, it's such a team effort in how you collaborate. And I'm so open to that. I want everyone to get involved with their, ideas of what they like. I just think it's not just you as a photographer that is controlling everything. It's never that way. So it comes together when everybody's on the same page, which is so nice.
Absolutely.
I love collaboration. It's one of the reasons I played in bands forever. And I've never when the band thing ended, like people were like, "Oh, are you going to do some solo stuff?" I was like, "No, like I like working with people."
Yeah.
It's not what I want to do. So.
And it just like elevates everything because you'll have an idea, they'll have an idea, and it just really helps to have a team that has a view, of their own.
Because you may have a great foundation for something that you want, and might add that one little thing that just takes it right over the top. And it's having people that you can trust. I think it's super fun to collaborate with people.
And I would really say for anyone looking to get into commercial work, there is nothing wrong with you. Like, as we know, I've got a set lighting that I love. And going into commercial work, I've learned so much because I have a team now that I work with. And obviously, assistants go and work with so many different photographers. They see all different styles of lighting, which you can never see as a photographer on your own. You're never privy to other photographers working. So that's invaluable if you want to go into commercial work. Really look for somebody that can come on those jobs with you as an assistant. You're going to learn from each other, because that's how I've progressed with commercial photography for sure. Otherwise, I'd probably still be too scared to try other things.
That's awesome. And someone was actually just asking, do you typically have assistants on your commercial shoots?
I never have up until the last 1.5, 2 years. So out of 10 years, I've done everything on my own, and it's only like the last 2.5 years. And I think I wanted to know as much as possible, but it was getting a bit stupid because there's only so much you can learn. But I just felt like if I was ever challenged on anything, I needed to know everything to kind of stand on my own 2 feet. But then at some point, you've just got to kind of go, well, actually, I don't really know anything, and I'm just always going to learn. And then that's the best thing, really. But obviously, know your staff enough to be able to go on a job and manage it yourself. But there's nothing wrong with other people getting involved and helping.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that completely. I think having a team with you, especially like the scale of the job, like if the job is smaller, obviously like I'll know how to handle a lot of things on my own. But like the bigger scale the job gets, the more like, okay, this is going to be a very intense job, and it's going to be like a 2-day job or a 3-day job. So you just want to make sure everything's executed really well, and you have like help on anything that you might need help with. It's a lot for a one-man show and a 3-day shoot.
It's a lot, and you need to be able to focus on what you're doing, which is photography, and just kind of let everybody else do what they're doing. So, oh my God, I don't know how I existed without people on a shoot with me now. I think I'm spoiled. So when I do go on a shoot on my own, I'm like, where is everybody? I have to move that myself.
Yeah, and it's way more inspiring, like you were saying, just to have people around working with you like on those shoots, for sure.
And I think one thing that people don't even think, because like at this point, Anna, what you said, you're 10, 11 years into this.
Yes.
And Kara, you're something similar, like you're well over a decade, right?
Yeah. I'm like,
exactly.
Thanks for that.
I stopped counting.
It's just experience. What are you saying? I'm 10 years. How am I into this? Oh no, I'm like 14 years into this. This is awful. I'm getting old. Oh no, I gotta go cry. crap. But no, one of the things that I think people, when you're just getting started and you hear people talking about assistants, you're like, oh, I've got to get an assistant. But you don't. What you need to do is network with other creatives and other photographers. Become friends. I think people get this mindset of it's always a competition and I'm always up against this photographer. But some of the best people that you're ever going to meet are other people shooting in your area. And one, like I said earlier, no matter what, no one shoots like you. You can use us three right now could all have the exact same lights, the exact same modifiers, and the photos are going to be completely different. And it's just because that's how we roll. Mm-hmm. So don't be afraid to reach out and talk to other photographers, become friends with them. And then when you're shooting some personal stuff, be like, hey, Dave, would you mind coming and hanging with me on this shoot? And then one day when Dave wants some help, you go, yeah, I'd love to help you on that shoot. And that's kind of where you start building those foundations. And then once it gets to the point where, you know, now it's time to start hiring assistants and the budgets call for that kind of stuff, then you get to there. But like understanding that relationship building, like my best buddy, John David, I've flown to Arkansas before to help him on a shoot. I live in Atlanta. Like I paid money to get on an airplane and go help him because he's one of my best buddies and it's a fun experience. So like you can always reach out to people like that. People love to do that kind of stuff.
They totally do. I think that's
it's so true because you feel so isolated as a photographer, I think, or you can make yourself feel isolated anyway. I think, as you said, there's so much competition and you like, I don't know about you, but I tend to like some of my work for about 2 minutes and then I hate it forever. And then probably a year later, I look back and I'm like, oh no, it's quite good. It's quite nice. But that can feel... That's really, you're just constantly tough and hard on yourself and wondering what everybody else is doing and why they're doing it so much better and getting paid so much more. But actually, when you do connect with other photographers, you find out that none of that's true anyway. And everybody tends to be in the same boat. And just even knowing that just kind of gives you a little bit of relief.
And you just thrive together. Like I've done jobs with friends that do commercial work too. And I'm assisting them and they'll assist me. It's just really fun because you were saying, it's really lonely sometimes, especially when you're at your house, always doing things by yourself or in studio, you know?
Yeah.
And you're making the photography industry stronger if you think about it from this perspective. One, you're this coalition of people who understand, especially like your region. But when you have really good friends that work in your region, like I have friends all the time that when it's time for me to bid a job, I'm like, hey, like, you know, Dave, how would you bid this? Like, I've never shot something like this before. And they're like, oh, I would blah, 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 blah. And that way, one, you're keeping industry rates where they should be.
Yes.
So you're not hurting the photography industry as a whole by undercharging for what you should be paid for. Mm-hmm. Plus, you're actually making the money that you deserve to make. So having these relationships is going to benefit you in the pocketbook just as much as it's going to benefit you in your heart from building lasting relationships with humans. So it's a great way to think of it globally.
I absolutely agree with that because keeping rates standard is really important. Because I mean, they're not going to hire you for other jobs if they're hiring someone that's like not charging the right thing or they're just not educated on what to charge for licensing or certain aspects of commercial like photography. So it's always good to be transparent and open with friends or people that need help. It gets us all further ahead for sure. And like you're saying, it makes our hearts happy when we're working with people we love.
Absolutely. Hey, you know, loneliness is an epidemic. Like we should all be reaching out and building great relationships. And plus, once again, just like you were talking about, Anna, with like learning from these assistants that you've been working with, people know different things. Like I have this supreme interest in photography lighting. And maybe somebody else just really knows how to direct people. Like I want to hang out with you and learn how to direct people. Maybe you want to hang out with me and learn some things about lighting. You can just riff off of one another all the time.
Yeah, definitely. And I think out of everything, rather than lighting being my skill, it is directing people and dealing with people. And I do think, like you said, I learned stuff from my assistant, and I think he also can build some confidence for himself just by like seeing me deal with people and then taking that away and applying it to his own shoot. So it's always like an amazing trade-off of learning, isn't it?
Absolutely. 100%. So we have a couple other questions before I think we've been doing this for an hour now, which is super fun. And guess what? Hour is universal. I don't even have to convert that to the metric system for anybody. So the question was to Anna and Kara, speaking of getting started, how did you both start with lighting?
Ooh, for me, it was weddings. I mean, Texas has some really bad venues. I'll be really honest with you. Like, there were some hole-in-the-wall venues where I was like, ooh, I'm going to need to try to get rid of this backdrop with light and just basically try to make it as simple and clean as possible so they don't hate me in 10 years when they look at their wedding photos and they're like, we should have chosen a different venue. So that's basically for me how it started. I just started learning about on-camera flash, off-camera flash, dragging the flash, and just trying to see like different techniques that I loved. And then from there, it progressed into more and more studio light and then A1s on set wherever you are. Like Anna was saying, like taking it on location, super simple and easy and lightweight, and you can run off if you're not in the right place. And they're like, "You're trespassing, wrong place." So yeah, that's how it started for me. Anna, how about you?
So I guess when I first started shooting, I remember just buying a very cheap studio kit of lighting from Amazon, I think. Just knowing that I just wanted to use one light because I mainly like shooting faces. If I could just shoot faces, I'd be happy. I don't care about the rest, clothes, bodies, whatever. So I wanted to shoot beauty and portrait. So I just knew, oh no, actually I know the first light I bought. It was a, what's that light that sits on the front of the camera?
Oh, the ring light.
Yeah, but it wasn't even a ring light because I couldn't afford one. It was a macro that dentists use.
Oh, it's one of those macro flashes, yeah.
I bought that from Tottenham Court Road, which has got lots of camera shots in London, which was, yeah, hideous. Probably used that for about 3 months before I realised, okay, this is just for dentists. And then I got myself a beauty dish, one light and a beauty dish, and it's kind of kept it simple, and it then progressed really from there. And as you said, with weddings, I mean, you don't know where you're shooting, and people look at my pictures and they're like, oh, love that the wedding in Ibiza that you did, that's so light and bright. And I'm like, you're getting married in a castle in Manchester, so
it's very, very dark.
To do something to make it light and bright and white. So yeah, you really learn on the job, don't you, with weddings?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that experience is invaluable.
Yes, because then, as we're talking about, you can, if you want to get into different types of photography and commercial photography, weddings is your training ground. I mean, you have to be a good photographer to shoot weddings well. You have to be.
Yeah.
People kind of turn their noses down at it still, sort of wedding photography. But I'm like, well, you try it then, because to get a consistent gallery of amazing pictures when you're given no weather, no light, no backdrops, sort of nothing that you would ask for as a photographer, but you still can pull it out the bag and deliver something that looks better than what it was to the naked eye.
Redos. Like no redos.
Yeah, no redos.
Get it right
it's like
first time.
That's so difficult. And then, as you said, you're dealing with managing the show at the same time.
Oh, absolutely. Like herding cats in a good way. And trying to enrich.
I'm actually
a great way.
Herder, so that's I totally get that.
Yeah, it's like you want to
you
enrich.
Can take all those skills.
Absolutely.
Well, awesome. I know someone had one other question earlier. It was technical, so I figured I would save it to the end to answer it. And someone was just asking, how can you use a light meter with like 3B10s and the connect trigger to meter off? There's no trigger button for the connect through the app, at least as of yet. So what you have to do is just keep the connect on top of your camera right with you and click the meter and fire off a shot from your camera in order to meter it that way. So maybe we'll add a test button into the app. It sounds like that's kind of what we're needing to get to anyway. So that's going to be the best way of doing that for right now. But other than that, ladies, this was super fun.
Super fun.
Yeah, it was super fun. It was so nice to like do this with you guys.
Yeah, it was a blast.
I can't believe that
so,
a whole hour went by.
I know, it went by
Yeah, that
so fast.
Feels like half
was
an
a whole hour. I was gonna I got all caught up in trying to be all cool and stuff and talking and whatnot, and I forgot to post up like Instagram go and follow caption things to make it look all fancy. So I'm gonna throw them up. We're gonna, as we're signing off, I'm gonna throw them both up, and that way you can go follow Anna, you can follow Kara, see what they're all about. You could reach out to them. I'm sure they would love to hear from you.
Please say hi. And I saw this last question, just to throw this in. I shoot through an umbrella mostly. I don't turn it around a lot. That was the last question I think they threw in here. But Anna, do you tend to turn it around or shoot through?
Yeah. I always turn it the other way around and bounce off it. That's funny, isn't it? I never even thought to do it the other way around.
I always
learned from you.
Yeah, we're all learning.
It's all trial and error.
Totally.
So that's cool. So thank you, ladies. Thanks everyone for coming in and kicking it with us. This was super fun. I hope y'all have an awesome rest of your week. Thank you so much for doing this with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Bye, everybody.
It's been so fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Peace.